Good morning. Please stand for the reading of the word. The scripture reading today is Matthew 25, 31 through 40, followed by Matthew 28, 19. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his throne in heavenly glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "I tell you the truth. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me." Go then to all peoples everywhere and make them my disciples.
Oh yeah, you can sit down, except for us, mission team up here. Well, we are really excited to be here and share about our trip. I know some of you might have heard some of Lainey's presentations, and we have some pictures on the screens to help tell you guys what we did. But first, I want to introduce the team that went. So I'm Mickey Carrington, and my husband Kelly Carrington, Lainey Lass, and Shirley Darcedon, and we're all the First United Methodist team members. And then we have Merlin Law and Pam Sheridan, who are the First Baptist team members. Yay! And we are very, very blessed to have all of your support. A lot of you helped us financially, and a lot of you helped us through your prayers, and you brought prayer bracelets and all kinds of things to help us go where we felt called to go. And so I'm the pointer for the slide movement. But anyway, we did go to Guatemala, and which is in Central America, just below Mexico. So, and it's one of the, I think, like, fourth areas for malnutrition in the world. So we went there, and we met, and like this morning, we were all crammed on our pew. We met at like 3:30 in the morning in the Walmart parking lot, and all 6 of us got in our truck and loaded all of our luggage in our truck and went down to the airport. And so it was a good way to get to know each other, waking up at 3:30 in the morning to travel to Guatemala. So our flights were quite uneventful, so that was good. We were blessed. And when we got to Guatemala, we landed in Guatemala City, and we had to take off, and you'll see there's a long winding path that they said was going to take us like 3 hours to leave Guatemala City and go to Panajachel, which is where we were going to be located. So 5 hours later, we arrived at our beautiful place. It turns out that Saturdays is a big market day in Guatemala City, and it was like rush hour with bicycles and cars and trucks and people and goats and sheep maybe. So anyway, we arrived at about 5 p.m. Guatemala time, which is Central Time, just like we are here, at River House. And River House is where Mission Guatemala has their base camp. And as you can see, it's beautiful and lush. and a wonderful, wonderful place to stay. That is where we ended up, and the one really positive thing besides all the beauty is we were told that is the one place in Guatemala where you can actually put the toilet paper in the toilet. It's the only place that has, and there's signs everywhere telling you otherwise, because they actually built the plumbing to support that, but nowhere else in Guatemala can you do that. So we also then woke up the next morning to a wonderful breakfast, and we were there with another group of volunteers from Decorah, Iowa. So it was really fun to meet other brothers and sisters, and they were from the Lutheran Church in Decorah. And so this is mainly our group, but you can kind of see a group in the back. And so Decorah had a team of 8 people there, so there was a total of 14 in mission in Guatemala that week. While we were in our every morning at breakfast, this painting was on the wall, and this is a depiction of the Last Supper. And in Guatemala, a lot of their paintings are real bright and colorful like this one, and they're all taken from a bird's eye view. So you're looking down on the scene, and this particular painting was done by one of the only female artists, because painting is evidently a man's thing. So anyway, it's one of and she's a very famous artist, and this was in our breakfast room, and so we got to learn about that painting. The next picture, we had 2 wonderful cooks, and they made our meals each day. We had breakfast each morning before we would go out to our work or other activities, and then they fed us dinner every night. And in this picture, there's some banana pancakes, which were really yummy. And then in this picture, you see that we had scrambled eggs and black beans and all kinds. There was fresh fruit. I think there's a chorizo sausage, and there was tortillas. And they handmade all their tortillas every day, and they were wonderfully delicious. And more importantly, there's that wonderful cup of coffee, which I think a lot of you experienced, and Lainey's taking orders for. Anyway, food was great, and they kept telling us to bring all these snacks because we weren't going to be like, we might not like the food, and so we had all these snacks, and we all anticipated losing pounds. That didn't happen. So they had great food. And then each morning when we were leaving to go for the day, all the teams met. This was like the gateway that entered into River House. And so we would all have all of our packs and lunches and stuff there before we loaded into vans. I don't know, 10, 12 passenger vans in order to go to our sites. And then when we first got there on Sunday, it's a non-work day, on Sunday, so we went to the market in Chichicastenango, and it's one of the largest markets in Central America, and they sell a lot of artisan wares. And so you'll see just some street scenes and how people walked for miles to bring their goods to market. And they do have cars, and they would and taxis, and they cram everything, and you'll see that later, to bring things to market. And I think one of the things for people that had not been out of the country a lot and been to outdoor markets, that was surprising is how demanding maybe some of the children were about buying their wares, and how they would follow you through the market and tell you stuff like, please buy from me, send me to school, I need to eat, I need to buy my books. If you've been a lot, you're kind of like, you put your non-tourist face on and ignore them. But I think after the day, some of them might tell you after the day, it was very tedious to have people always wanting you to buy stuff from them. The other thing they had in this market was a beautiful produce market. And for those of you that don't know, I work in food service, and so seeing some of the food in the outdoor markets and the wonderful, beautiful produce that came in from miles away was really neat for me. And then you'll see even the children carry things to market. So here you'll see they can put straps on their heads and they carry them. Often they'll carry their load of market wares on their back and their baby on their front. And it looks very hard, but I guess actually maybe that balances the load. So, but anyway, it was a wonderful experience to go to that market, and that was our Sunday. And we've divided this presentation kind of by the days of the week when we went. And it's important to know that once we get to the work site, the idea was, if you don't know this, when you stucco a wall, you can't like stop in the middle. You have to complete the whole wall. So as you'll see moving forward, after we talk about the mission, each day is about a wall. And then there's other things that happen. So Lainey is going to take over.
Thanks, Mickey, and what a joy to be able to go to Guatemala. I was actually, when I was young, so maybe some of you remember this, but Dr. Dale Weber would give mission talks right here in the sanctuary and show films of his time with Dr. Albert Schweitzer in Africa, where he served for several years, maybe on his vacation or sabbaticals or something, and we'd have a big mission dinner downstairs and then come up here and fill the sanctuary and talk about mission. And so I think I gained some of my love of mission from those experiences here. Mission Guatemala was started in 2010 by Pastor Tom Heaton, who is from Evansville, Indiana. And he had served in Guatemala for 10 years in other mission and has an assistant, Dave, who also has served in mission for many years. And Pastor Tom has adopted 2 sons from Guatemala. And what they wanted to do was they saw a need for a medical clinic in the small poor villages in the mountains. So although some of the larger communities have a lot of missions, the smaller villages that they serve do not. So these are 2 of the women staff members of Mission Guatemala who work with their adoption programs and food programs. And there's Malia was on the other side, and Juanita on the other side of the picture. And Malia actually went to college at Iowa Wesleyan University, where she received a scholarship to come here. And this is their medical clinic with Dr. Lydia, with Dave, the assistant for Mission Guatemala. And Dr. Lydia is from Guatemala, went to college in Cuba and got her medical degree and is back in Guatemala. So that's one thing of Mission Guatemala, that they provide opportunities. And they also hire local Guatemalans. The pharmacist there in the picture with Merlin is from Guatemala as well. Another part of Mission Guatemala's service is bringing clean water to the people. And instead of digging wells, what they do is they provide water filters. These are 2-story buckets, and it takes 5 hours for the river water or creek water to filter through, and then there's a spigot on the bottom, and Dave is showing the inside of that bucket system there. And what's really amazing is that Mission Guatemala follows up. They're not a Band-Aid. They're not an organization that says, oh, here you go, and they follow through with people, and they build relationships. And so if any of you are interested in helping Mission Guatemala, if you go to their website, you can learn further about them, because they found the price of those filters are more than most people make in 1 month. And so that they really appreciate all the money, and they follow up to make sure that the filters are replaced, because the people can't afford to replace the filters. They also have an eye clinic, and they have an optometrist who helps the people. Besides, there's great services of groups like the Lions Club that collect glasses, and what the Mission Guatemala does then is fit them and make the lenses to fit the needs of the people. It's not just, here's a pair of glasses for you and hope they work. No, they make them fit the people, and that's really reaching out and becoming aware of the people's needs. And they also have a dental clinic, and this is a picture of one day the dentist came to the school that we were serving at, and so the kids got toothbrushes and toothpaste and those little pink tablets that show where you need to brush a little more with, and they were happy with that. And the dentist clinic, Merlin can tell you, some of the medical clinics, it looked like it was 1960s equipment here, but for them it was brand new. They had never had anything like that. And a dentist from Evansville, Indiana, where Pastor Heaton was from, retired, and so he shipped all of his equipment to Guatemala in huge crates to help the people there. And next to the medical clinic, they had a computer room where students come. There aren't computers in the schools at all, so they have the middle school and high school students come and learn, and you can also see they're typing on typewriters, because if they're in a place where they don't have electricity, you can't use computers. So they learn to type on typewriters, as well as they're bused to learn to use the computers. And another thing is the stove project that they do, and I'll tell you, Dave, who is the assistant director of Mission Guatemala, spoke with so much passion. He's probably given these speeches to us over the last, to groups over the last 6 years, and it was like he was talking to the very first group. He had such passion and such love for what he was doing. But the people, the women in their homes cook on dirt stoves, on just firewood, fires on the stoves. And so what the mission is trying to do is improve the ventilation and the cooking. So they build these block stoves and with a metal piece on top, and then vent out the air, because what's happening, they're finding lung diseases in the women and children from all the cooking going on in the home, and the life expectancy of average Guatemala people is like 30 years less than what it is here in the United States, or some of that.
Oh, just so you know, I think we were all over the life expectancy of Guatemalans as a team.
Yeah, yeah. And they also have chicken coops, because Mission Guatemala serves 1,750 meals every week to the children in schools, 8 different schools. And so that's how they get their protein, is from the chickens. And again, they hire local farmers to serve at their chicken coops. And they have a sewing classroom adjacent to the medical clinic where they have electric machines. And also there's a group from Iowa a few months before we went, and they took the old treadle machines that you don't need electricity, to help the women improve their ability, because the women make a lot of money in their cooperatives selling their woven products, and they had a teacher there in the room showing them how to use the machines. Now, I'll turn it over to Pam. Thank you.
Good morning. Mission Guatemala is an awesome time in our lives. And while we were there at the clinic, we also met our crew members, of which none of them would speak English. So it was quite interesting. Diego was our guide who helped us throughout the time, who was our interpreter at the River House, and then when we went to our work site. We rode about 15 minutes to get to the school site, and you can see the sign there. It was Chuti Sistacanica was the name of the school. And you can see children riding on, each morning we would see them riding on the back of pickups or walking or whatever they had for transportation. A few had bikes. And here was our new site that we were going to work at. Before we went, we had no idea what we were going to do. We kept asking, well, what are we going to do when we get down there? We didn't know. This is what we found out. It wasn't on Merlin's bucket list, but she got to carry the buckets. Anyway, we were creating a new kitchen for a school of 350 children. At the school, we were able to meet the staff and the teachers while we were there. Diego was our great interpreter. We found out that the teacher there and the principal, the majority was actually men teachers, especially at the elementary level, which I was really impressed with. Teachers here compared in Guatemala seem to get paid pretty well compared to the rest of the people. They make $15 a day, US money. But often they spend $5 of that dollars just for transportation to get to and from school each day in a little vehicle called a tuk-tuk, like a taxi here. We ended, after we met the teachers, with a prayer, and we blessed the staff of the school, the children, and our mission team to give us strength to build that new kitchen. Mission Guatemala, if you look here at the picture, this was our first look at the inside. Part of it had already been completed from other 18 trips, or teams from other countries that had already been there. And so part of the walls were done, actually all were done, but the stuccoing hadn't been completed, and a roof were on there. And you can see the open windows in the background. And you can see out here, this is kind of what our days started with. We would do a lot of, excuse me, sifting of sand and adding the lime. And you can see here, and mix and mix and mix. It was a lot of hard work. We didn't expect it to be this hard. We even had to chisel down the old mortar from the walls prior to this. And I tell you, that axe, it was hard work chiseling. And I'm up on a platform. I'm not on the ground. I'm up on a scaffolding. And then what we had to do was we had to pour water. And sometimes we had little bowls. Even one had a crack in it, so you had to hold it just right so you didn't lose half it before you got it up on the wall. If we were really lucky, we had a water hose. And if we were really, really lucky, we had the power behind it. And then we could hose the walls down. But we had to do this every time while we were doing it, while part of us were stuccoing it, and then we were sanding or sifting and sifting to get the smaller little pebbles out of there that we don't want. Otherwise, it wouldn't smooth very effectively. And here we are on our first wall. And it was quite an accomplishment. I don't have the strength that Kelly has. Kelly, he would smooth it out and looked really good. And I'd kind of and push it up. And then you can see the children with their smiles. They were a blessing on every day that we were there. They are our focus of our lives that helped us keep going. And it was just really awesome. Now you can see here on day 2, by the pictures, we're doing more sifting and sanding, and there goes the bucket. And that was a heavy, heavy bucket. Once you add all of that into it, the stucco, and try to carry it, it would take 2 physically to carry it and bring it and lift it up. Mickey would lift it up on top of the scaffolding, and Kelly then I would take over. Here was a wonderful person that we got to meet. She's the journalist for Mission Guatemala. Her name is Anna, and she takes pictures of their projects. She writes articles and posts them on their website, so if you ever go on their website, you can see that. On this day, we stuccoed a second wall, and this wall had 2 windows on it. And you can see down below there were 3 stoves that they will be using as part of their kitchen here. As we were having back pains and moaning and groaning and thinking to ourselves, okay, the Lord's got me here, I'm doing what he wants me to do, and we'd look out the window and we'd see the farmers. Here are the farmers planting, hoeing, all by hand, no tractors, no equipment, and no animals to do any of the plowing. I figure if I can do this, what I'm doing for 1 week, I look at what they're doing their whole life. So that was what was really awesome about this. And then at the end of every day, we would have a wonderful time. We would go through, and Mission Guatemala has on their website information that helped prepare us for this trip. They allowed us to learn about what mission really is. And a question was, what do you want out of this trip? And the meaning that we came back was to meet them. We're not going there on a mission trip to change them, but to meet them and to know about them and see what their needs are. And that's what this helped us do. So every night we would go through scripture in a discussion format. And even one night, which was really a moving night, we did this by our cell phone lights and a flashlight because the power went off. But I think that was our most spiritual night. We just grew closer. We had a lot of love and laughter during these evenings, but very rewarding. Thank you.
Day 3, again the wall, more stucco, more sifting. This is their kitchen. This is the kitchen, the old kitchen. It's still the kitchen they're using yet today because the new one is not completed. Hopefully we'll go inside. Inside the kitchen, in the back of the kitchen, it's a dirt wall with just pans. And then you can see that in the front of the kitchen, they're cooking lunch for snacks for the children, and that's plantains. And they take cinder blocks, and they take some wood, and they start a fire, and that's how they cook it over the cinder blocks. These were women that were cooking that day, and they don't usually have their picture taken, and I took their picture and they showed it to them, and they all had their eyes closed, so they laughed and laughed. But they feed 300 students daily with a daily snack. In that big round container where they were cooking is porridge. And the children bring their cups from home at snack time, and they enjoy this, like this rice porridge or corn porridge with some chocolate mixed into it, and that's why they bring their cups, and they would wash their cups out afterwards. Some of the parents come and sell things for the children to buy, little Tostitos, some little frozen fruit juice things. These little kitty cats were just adorable. They'll know we are Christians by our love, and let me tell you, when we first got there, these kids were kind of shy, but that all ended. So day 3, it's almost quitting time. We're starting to clean up. The professionals in the background are finishing up, touching up the walls. Again, the kitty cats. And on the left, they have a big gym. They don't have cities in Guatemala. They have municipalities. And they had a big community event where they had like samba music. And every day, the kids would play soccer. And these are the faces of our future. These, again, it was the children and knowing what a difference we're going to make for them. And I think we have a little sound clip. Well, the sound clip isn't there, but their playgrounds have nothing. They were playing Ring Around the Rosie, except they don't fall down. And is this still my part? This is the inside, huh? Yes. Yeah, this is the inside of the school. Very different compared to our schools, but the children they were so happy to show us their classrooms, and they all had chores. These little girls had to sweep out their classrooms every day. They'd sweep the dirt and dust out, and every morning they would pick up trash and they would go burn it. They had like this burning thing where a lot of it didn't burn, but the bathrooms for us was right behind it, so it was kind of nice since you couldn't throw your toilet paper in the toilet. You could throw it in the fire because it was always smoldering. And I think I'll turn it over.
Okay, there's over 22 different Mayan dialects and languages in Guatemala. Guatemala as a country is about 3/4 of the size of Iowa. And each of these languages is a little bit different. This is the K'chi language, which was the area where the school was that they spoke, and the families speak their native Mayan language in the home, and then when they get to school, they learn Spanish. And school is mandatory up through the 6th grade, and then after that, they have to pay. So only about 30% of the children go on to middle school after that. This is a little bit about the culture of Guatemala. It shows families riding on a motorcycle. Those are the tuk-tuks that Pam talked about, and there we are taking a tuk-tuk ride. It was $5 to take a ride, and if you got off, you had to pay another $5 to go. So it's kind of expensive, and everywhere you see people just hopping on other people's vehicles because transportation is expensive. And we learned a lot about the Mayan culture. As you see, the women, the indigenous Mayan women wear, first of all, the colors. If you remember on that map, there were areas that had pinks or greens or purples. those are the colors of their dress and from their native culture that they would wear. And the women still wear their native Mayan outfits, but the men have changed to more Western outfits because Guatemala had a civil war from 1960 to 1996. And what ended the civil war was a horrible earthquake. And then the whole country kind of worked together in survival mode. But the men were told, "You're with us." They were told by guerrillas, "You're with us or we'll kill you." And so in order from a distance, because the men were outside working in the fields, so they changed to more Western attire so they couldn't be seen from a distance as being of the Mayan people. But the women were in the homes with the children, so they kept wearing their native attire. And this was a fun night, and that was Miguel and his daughter, and they're explaining marimbas, which are from the Mayan culture as well. And we have a little video of, those are his 3 daughters playing the marimba. I'm sorry you can't hear that, but it's an interesting thing about the one daughter's hat. You see that has that brim. What it is, oh, there we go. So that's a little bit of the marimba music. The one daughter's hat, it's made like a brim, and what it is, it's a really long woven belt that probably goes from here to the piano, and she starts weaving it in the back of her head, and then just weaving it around and around until she has a hat made out of that. And also you'll see the women wearing like a blanket as a hat, because they'll put everything in a woven blanket on their head, and then when they're done carrying whatever they do, they fold it up, and that also helps protect them from the sun.
Here we are all together inside the kitchen, and it was amazing how much progress really we did make for a small group throughout the week. I had an easier job. I was the oldest in the group, so I didn't get up on the scaffolding. And one day I did have to sit out because of my health, so I got to enjoy the children more. So the children were my passion, and we all enjoyed them. But here they are. Here I am playing basketball with this little girl. She asked me if I would do that, and I did, and she almost got into trouble because she was supposed to be eating her little snack on the playground. This is the playground equipment that the kids had. And the kids were a delight, and you never heard them complain. They were so respectful and kind. They enjoyed just whatever they had. These little girls were on the swing. I come out of the one classroom, I think it was after lunch, we ate at one of the classrooms, and the little girl said swing. And most often we couldn't understand, we couldn't understand the language, but then I took their photo, and the smiles and the hugs from all the kids were just amazing. This gentleman, we went out for early morning walk, 6 o'clock maybe in the morning, and we were walking, and he's coming. We see he has a machete attached to his belt, and he's wanting to come closer, and we're not sure, but all he wanted to do was give us a hug. And it was just really touching to us how, he reached out, and how hugs and smiles are the same in every language, and how God spoke in those ways. Here we are. Actually, I wanted just to share a little bit before we move to day 5. The children enjoyed having their photos taken, and they would want to see their pictures back on the cameras or the phones. That was really fun because Merlin did took a lot of the photos on hers. So, that was part of what, if we took their photos, and we would always ask first, but part of that was so they could see their pictures, because oftentimes they didn't get to do that. And oftentimes the kids would be doing their chores. We saw them washing their dishes after lunch in cold water with no soap in the trough, where we cleaned sometimes the tools. So then the kids on the gate, they were just, when we would be working on the site, we were right there by their classroom, and how they could concentrate, I don't know, or the teachers, could even teach, because the kids would come out quite often to either go to the bathroom or I don't know what, but they were outside a lot. And we would start at the beginning of the week and they were shy a little bit. By about Wednesday, oh my goodness, they'd come up and poke you in the side, so you come like chase after them or play with them or whatever. So it was the joy and the blessing of their beautiful eyes and their smiles throughout the week. God certainly surrounded us that week with these precious children as they entertained us and they warmed us through the physical labor of each day, because sometimes we all were like, oh, how are we going to make it through? Day 5, Kelly's going to display the...
You might have noticed one of the pictures earlier when Shirley first started talking, a group picture with the scaffolding in the background. I have that picture on my office wall at work. And some people are very concerned about the scaffolding itself. Obviously, it doesn't match the OSHA standards we have here in the States, but it actually is quite strong. Any scaffolding I get on, no matter where it is, I inspect it first and test it before I do put my trust in it. This is well built. Every cross member of structural had at least 3 fasteners. When we're building inside, they do it from wall to wall. That way there's no twist effect of collapse in that nature. If they can't do that, they have diagonal bracing. One thing that's also important, they mentioned earlier the machete. Machetes here are viewed differently than machetes there. Machetes there are a very useful tool, and it's used for quite a bit of things. In this case, we were using it to dig the holes that the post went in. Now, this isn't dig a big hole, put the post in and backfill. It's dig the size of the post. So it's virgin earth on all sides, so it's very structurally sound in that nature. And you're going 12 to 14 inches deep, so about the size of your machete. And so it's kind of a challenge to dig that hole, but it's very effective. Now, in this case, this was our first scaffolding outside. Obviously, didn't have any walls that we could brace the ends against. This is Mickey's favorite photo, I think, because in this photo, we are bracing the scaffolding against a stump. A tree stump there. We nailed it to the tree stump and then nailed it so it couldn't have the side effect. So very effective. And as for me, the scaffolding was a little narrow and it was a little bit close to the wall. The locals, shorter arms, they needed it up close. I needed it further away. So you definitely had your mind on task. You had to focus on what you were doing. Otherwise, you didn't step back and admire your work.
And you didn't want to hit the beams. I kept hitting the one beam with my head as I moved up.
Here to the left is Camilla. She is a teacher from London. She taught art at one of the mission schools. Actually, we gave her a ride to school, I think 4 days during the week, and she would have to walk up this steep hill to her school. We also took supplies over, colors and colored pencils, and then Clinton High School students made some booklets. Big Brown Bear was one of them, so she was going to use those in her classroom. Actually, this on-site where we were did not, that wasn't one of the missions schools, but the community came to Guatemala Mission to ask if they could help support this project to build a new kitchen, and they thought it was a very worthy project, so they went forward and helped the school. But just the right-hand photo of Kelly, the high five of the boy, it was just adorable. Just the kids, the smiles, the delight of being there and just having us, I think, help them build something new. And when I didn't see this, actually the old kitchen till Thursday, I could not believe what was being prepared out of, 300 and some meals. And it was just how they could do that was just amazing. So this in our standards is pretty simple. But to them, it was a beautiful, beautiful kitchen it would be when it got done. And then here's the Merlin's working on, and Kelly's up there working, and is that Pam, you? On the outside of the kitchen. And we also learned that in Guatemala, there's no special needs classes, so the kids struggle a lot in learning. So a lot of times by 6th grade, then they're done going to school.
Yes, so as you saw, we had like 1 day of rain, and that was our last day there, and we were frantically trying to finish this outside wall, and we're running over, so I'm going to have Kelly just kind of go through the slides here and show you. We did get a little tourism at the end of the, and we went across the lake to the area where they make a lot of the fabric. It was beautiful, Lake Atalan. We saw how they hand wove and actually hand dyed or naturally dyed all the materials. Got to see again beautiful children. And we moved mountains of sand, shared lots of love, and are grateful to an awesome God that stands at the door and knocks, calling us to follow him. Will you say, "Here I am, send me"? There are a lot of local opportunities, so if you're sitting out there going, "I could never do that," we have Hearts and Hands, we have Vacation Bible School, Crop Walk and the Pork Dinner, we prepare food boxes, we have Harvest Hoorah. God calls each and every one of you to mission. And in case you don't know what to do, in your bulletin, there's a list of 16 opportunities and contact people. So take that with you. It starts inside and continues on the blue insert. So go where God leads you and make disciples. And I'll have Pastor Bob come close us in prayer.
Very good. If you would all stand for the closing. May the God of all grace, who has created this world and those of us in it with just such great, amazing, astounding ability and a beauty to be found in so many ways. Thank you, Lord, for placing us in your creation and loving us in the midst of it. Help us to go forth in so many different ways to share your kind of love with your creation. Truly bind us together, Lord, in unity and love, your people, your children throughout the world. May we go and share your love in many, many ways. Know that the God of all grace and mercy and love goes with you. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen.